Hello everyone, and welcome to my Sister Wives For You channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. The news that has left the Sister Wives world in shock revolves around none other than Kody Brown, the once dominant patriarch of TLC's polygamous reality family, who has reportedly been hospitalized due to a spiraling mental health crisis, and the whispers suggest that Robyn Brown, his only remaining wife, might be at the center of the turmoil, a fact that has left fans dissecting every detail of his downfall, every sign of deterioration that had been playing out on screen for years before. This hospitalization finally brought everything to a boiling point, because if there is one thing viewers know, it is that Kody's descent into anger, paranoia, and alienation was not sudden but rather a slow burn, a decade in the making, fueled by fractured relationships with Meri, Christine, and Janelle, financial stress over Coyote Pass, and his obsessive determination to maintain control over a family that was slipping away from him piece by piece, leaving only Robyn by his side, though some argue that even her unwavering loyalty may have played a role in triggering the mental breakdown that landed him in the hospital, as living in a constant echo chamber of Robyn's reinforcement of his victim narrative may have prevented him from seeking true help until it was too late, and now the family is facing a crisis unlike any they've faced before, one that is both deeply personal and painfully public. Fans who have followed the Browns from their early days in Lehi, Utah, through their move to Las Vegas, and finally to their fragmented life in Flagstaff, have long suspected that Kody's erratic behavior, swinging from arrogant bravado to bitter self-pity, might be a sign of deeper struggles, and his outbursts during confessionals in the later seasons of Sister Wives, where he ranted about betrayal, lack of loyalty, and his feeling of being ganged up on by the wives who dared to challenge him, now appear to be red flags that few took seriously at the time, chalked up instead to his outsized ego and domineering personality. But now with reports of hospitalization, those same moments are being re-examined under the lens of mental illness, with some sources claiming that Kody has been battling untreated depression, while others point toward anxiety mixed with narcissistic tendencies that spiraled out of control once the family unit he prided himself on disintegrated before his eyes, leaving him in a cage of his own making, unable to cope with the collapse of the polygamous dream he once preached with zeal. And although Robyn remains by his side, questions are swirling about whether her influence, once seen as stabilizing, has in fact isolated Kody further, cutting him off from any remaining bridges to Meri, Janelle, and Christine, who have made it clear that their lives are better without him. Robyn's role in all of this cannot be ignored, as her reason for standing by Kody, even as he deteriorated, is being interpreted in multiple ways by both insiders and fans, with some suggesting that her loyalty comes from a genuine belief in their marriage and her commitment to Kody's well-being, while others argue that Robyn's insistence on being his one true confidant and protector may have inadvertently deepened his paranoia and sense of victimhood, reinforcing the us versus them mentality that alienated him from his older children, particularly Janelle's boys who openly clashed with him, and from Christine, whose departure shattered his pride, and even from Meri, whose attempts to find love outside the marriage were met with cold dismissal. And now Robyn's reason for staying, her claim that she loves Kody enough to weather anything, has been turned upside down by critics who argue that her sheltering of him, her constant siding with his narratives, might have delayed his getting real help until the breaking point. And while she continues to tell those close to her that she is standing by her husband because love doesn't walk away when it's hard, others whisper that Robyn is fueled by fear, knowing that if Kody collapses completely, the life she built around him and the image of being the favorite wife collapses too. What makes the situation even more heartbreaking is how it mirrors the very themes that Sister Wives was built upon: faith, resilience, and the struggle to maintain unity in the face of division. Yet as the seasons rolled on, viewers saw less of unity and more of Kody unraveling, his golden curls often a mess, his face contorted with anger or sorrow, his words dripping with resentment toward the wives who would no longer yield to him, and now, in the stark walls of a hospital, stripped of his bravado, he is forced to confront the one reality he has spent years avoiding: that he is not invincible, not the commanding patriarch of a thriving family empire, but a man whose mental health has been neglected for far too long. A man who is now dependent not on a rotating circle of wives, but on medical professionals and, most of all, on Robyn, whose reason for sticking by him might define how history remembers her, whether as the woman who saved him in his darkest hour or the one who inadvertently played a role in his fall by enabling his worst impulses. And while fans may debate endlessly, the truth remains locked away in the guarded statements from the Brown family, who have largely gone silent as speculation runs rampant online. It is telling that Meri, Christine, and Janelle have remained publicly detached from the hospitalization, offering no official statements, though insiders say that Janelle in particular has been torn between anger and sadness, acknowledging that while Kody's actions pushed her away, she never wanted to see him reach such a point of crisis, while Christine has reportedly told friends that she saw this coming long ago, describing Kody as a ticking time bomb whose refusal to take accountability for anything would one day implode. And Meri, who's been on her own healing journey, has allegedly said that she hopes Kody finds the help he needs but will not insert herself into the chaos, preferring instead to focus on her new ventures and possible relationship. And as for the children, the reactions have been mixed, with some feeling vindicated in their belief that their father's rigidity was masking something deeper, and others expressing genuine concern despite years of estrangement, underscoring just how complicated the Brown family dynamics remain, even in the wake of something as sobering as a mental health hospitalization. The TLC cameras, of course, have been a constant shadow over all of this, and speculation is mounting over whether the network will include Kody's mental health crisis in future seasons of Sister Wives, or whether this is one storyline too raw, too private, to be broadcast to millions, though if history is any indication, TLC will not shy away from hinting at it, perhaps framing it as another chapter in the ongoing saga of a once proud polygamist whose world crumbled before the eyes of America. And fans, who have already seen Christine find happiness with David Woolley, Janelle carve out independence, and Meri finally reclaim her self-worth, may now see a very different Kody in future footage, not the loud, domineering man who insisted on loyalty at all costs, but a fragile, wounded figure struggling with the weight of everything he has lost, clinging to Robyn as both lifeline and anchor, and perhaps, in a tragic twist, resenting her even as she tries to save him, because Kody has always thrived on control, and hospitalization strips him of that, leaving only vulnerability, which he has never been willing to show the world, and now the world has no choice but to witness it. The bigger question that looms is whether this crisis could serve as a turning point for Kody Brown, whether hospitalization and treatment might finally help him confront the inner demons that have haunted him for years, or whether it will only deepen the cycle of blame and resentment that has characterized his recent years, with Robyn's reason for staying either elevating her to a place of admiration as the wife who refused to give up, or condemning her as the enabler who stood by while her husband self-destructed. And either way, this chapter marks one of the darkest, most dramatic turns in the Sister Wives narrative, one that forces both the Browns and their audience to face uncomfortable truths about the cost of pride, isolation, and unaddressed mental illness. And as the story continues to unfold, one thing is clear. The era of Kody Brown as the unshakable leader of the Sister Wives clan is over, and in its place stands a man grappling with frailty, with Robyn holding fast to her reason for staying, while everyone else, wives, children, fans, watches to see if this is the breaking point that finally changes everything or merely another chapter in a saga of collapse that has no end in sight. As the news of Kody Brown's hospitalization continues to ripple through the Sister Wives fanbase, the analysis and speculation only grow louder, with some devoted viewers recalling past scenes that now appear like glaring warning signs of a man on the edge, moments that once seemed like mere dramatics for reality television now reframed as potential cries for help. Like the infamous Thanksgiving episode where Kody ranted in isolation, furious at his older children for refusing to bend to his pandemic rules, pacing and spitting words of anger that betrayed not just authoritarian control but the desperation of a man losing grip, or his repeated claims in confessionals that he felt hated and betrayed by the very women he once courted with promises of unity and shared dreams, Words that at the time were taken as exaggerations, but now seem eerily prophetic of an unraveling mental state. Because when someone insists again and again that everyone is against them, it often signals something deeper than just family squabbles, and in Kody's case, it was compounded by years of financial stress, fractured faith, and the constant glare of cameras capturing every meltdown, every loss of composure, every bitter word, until his entire identity as the strong patriarch had been reduced to memes and critiques online, fueling a cycle of humiliation that no doubt played into his current crisis. And through it all, Robyn stood firm, defending him in ways that at first seemed loyal but now leave many wondering if her unwavering support was a double-edged sword, both shielding him from immediate collapse and also preventing him from confronting the truth about his behavior until it reached a hospital ward. Robyn's reason for staying with Kody, despite his decline, is being examined under a microscope, and insiders say that she has told friends she feels a spiritual obligation, that in her eyes, marriage is not disposable, and walking away from a struggling husband would violate her own sense of covenant. Yet critics argue that Robyn has also benefited from Kody's downfall in subtle ways, positioning herself as the last wife standing, the legal spouse with all of the marital privileges, the sole inheritor of the family's dwindling resources, and the one whose children receive undivided attention from their father. And while she claims her reason is love and duty, skeptics insist it may also be power and control disguised as loyalty, because if Robyn were to leave Kody now, she would no longer be the queen in his fractured kingdom, and so she holds on, even as he crumbles, painting her reason as noble while fans remain divided, some admiring her perseverance and others condemning her as the architect of his isolation, the woman who replaced a once large support system of 4 wives with a suffocating partnership that left Kody without perspective, trapped in a narrative where he is always the victim and everyone else is to blame, a narrative that has now landed him in a hospital bed. What makes the hospitalization even more significant is the silence from TLC and the uncertainty about whether Sister Wives can continue in its current form, because while the network has thrived on drama, divorces, and shifting alliances, the prospect of documenting Kody's mental illness brings ethical questions to the forefront, forcing producers to weigh ratings against compassion. And some believe TLC will try to spin it into yet another arc, perhaps showing Robyn visiting Kody in the hospital, tearfully declaring her reason for staying, while the other wives are filmed reacting at a distance, highlighting the fractured family dynamic for the cameras, and others fear that the show has reached its natural endpoint, that Kody's health crisis might mark the death knell for a series that has already morphed from a documentary about polygamy into a saga of collapse and estrangement. And fans are debating whether they even want to see Kody's struggles exploited on screen, or whether the family should be allowed to navigate this privately. Though given the Browns' history of blending personal pain with public storytelling, it seems unlikely that TLC will simply walk away from such a seismic development. The children's perspectives on their father's hospitalization have added yet another layer of complexity, because while some of them, particularly the younger ones under Robyn's care, are said to be distraught and protective of their dad, others like Garrison and Gabe, who had explosive conflicts with Kody during the pandemic, remain distant, with sources saying they are sympathetic to the fact that he is unwell but not eager to reconcile, viewing the hospitalization as a consequence of years of behavior that they tried to call out long ago, only to be dismissed and vilified. And as for Christine's daughters, especially Isabel and Michaelty, they reportedly see the situation through a lens of bittersweet clarity, recognizing that while their father's condition is tragic, it also validates their decision to support Christine's independence, because they no longer have to fight to prove that their father was unstable. They are now seeing the world acknowledge it, and that recognition brings both sorrow and relief. While Mary's child, Leon, who has long had a strained relationship with Kody, is said to be completely disengaged, focusing on their own life and refusing to be drawn back into the drama, a reflection of just how deep the fractures go and how little chance there is of true healing, even in the face of something as sobering as mental illness. Financial concerns are also swirling in the background of Kody's hospitalization, because the Browns' long-touted dream of building on Coyote Pass has been reduced to little more than a dusty piece of land mired in disputes and unpaid taxes, and with Kody incapacitated, questions about who will manage the family's debts and obligations are growing louder, especially since Robyn, despite being Kody's legal wife, has often been portrayed as financially dependent on him, leaving fans to wonder if she is prepared to step into the role of provider, and whether TLC might intervene to ensure that the Browns remain financially afloat, since the network still benefits from their storylines, and in many ways, Kody's mental illness cannot be separated from these financial stresses, because for years he has framed Coyote Pass as the cornerstone of the family's future. And watching that dream dissolve has likely compounded his sense of failure, a failure magnified by Christine's new marriage, Janelle's independence, and Mary's pursuit of self-reinvention, each milestone for his ex-wives serving as a reminder that they are thriving without him while he remains stuck in a spiral of resentment and regret, feeding the very mental health struggles that have now consumed him. For longtime viewers, the irony is not lost that Kody, once the face of confidence and bravado, has now become a symbol of vulnerability and collapse, a man who once preached about living with joy and spiritual purpose now reduced to the cautionary tale of what happens when pride, control, and unaddressed mental illness collide, and Robyn's reason for staying, whether out of love, obligation, or fear, becomes central to the legacy of the Brown family, because if she manages to guide him toward healing and stability, she may redeem herself in the eyes of skeptics who see her as the villain of the story, but if his decline continues, her reason will be remembered not as noble but as destructive, the final piece of the puzzle that trapped Kody in a cycle he could not escape, and with every passing day of his hospitalization, that legacy grows heavier. Because Sister Wives has always been about more than just polygamy, it has been about choices, consequences, and the ways in which family members either lift each other up or drag each other down, and in this chapter, Kody and Robyn are left to face the harsh truth that sometimes loyalty is not enough, that sometimes love, or what one calls love, can blur into enabling, and that sometimes the greatest act of care is not standing by but stepping back, though whether Robyn will ever see it that way remains to be seen, as she continues to cling to her reason, while the world watches to see if this is the end of Kody Brown as we knew him, or the beginning of something entirely new.